Now that we got the basic lines out of the way, um, I almost wanted to move on to what do you call it? Drawing from reference, but I realized that we're actually jumping a few steps there. So we're going to go even simpler than that. So we're going to start with basic shape drawings, right? So so the basic shapes are very obviously a circle, a triangle, and a square. The reason these are the basic shapes are circles are very good for adding depth to a drawing, and for like if it's like a sphere or something, you can sort of cut into it and make it look round. Um, you can add shading to it even. Make it look like a sphere. So that allows you to add a lot of mass to things. So you use that for muscles or skulls, or even like you look at like the little folds I did here. They have like a rounded mass to them. Um, tubes are basically just like really long circles. We also have triangles. So the reason triangles are important is because they're the sharp thing. So anytime there's a corner, like for instance, again using my little reference down here, the ends of the necklace things. I'm not sure what you call them, but there's three little triangles. So anytime something is sharp, comes to a point, fuzzy or furry, you can use those little sharp triangles. And then for the squares, square is good for construction. It's also good for anything that's square shaped. Anything that's like long or blocky. So like if you're drawing an arm on someone, you might use squares. So like up here is their shoulder, and down here is their hand, right? And like I said, muscles. So on top of the arm, you'll have these round masses, right? So you use sort of circles for that. Or you could consider them to be hybrids between the two shapes because there's nothing stopping you from being able to do that. Like this. So now we have a little bit of a hybrid. We can even add shading to it. So it's like round down here, but it could be sharp on this side. So we have a bit of an edge here, but it's not quite so edgy on this side. It's sort of just soft. So you can kind of see the dynamic shape that we're able to create here with this like little corner here, which you could consider implementation of the triangle, this little corner right here. Um, and we could even sharpen that triangle a bit by adding a little bit of darkness to it with the smudge tool. So this is basically just an example of a shape drawing where all these different, and I want this to look extra smooth, so I'm gonna make sure it's nice and shaded. We can get the eraser. We can make sure this is nice and sharp, so we can erase this line right here. Erase this line right here. Sharp. And there you go. That's like a hybrid drawing using all of the different shapes that we have available to us. And if you want it to look like an art portfolio, then you can go ahead and add a shadow to everything that you draw, which will help you to imagine how things look in 3D shape. So like the base is this cube shape here, so that's why there's this cube. And then we have this part right here that sort of juts out. We need to add the little triangle. And then on the bottom, it's rounded, so we can make that nice and rounded. Once again, blur tool. That way we can make that nice even tone. There you go. So there you go. That's a little unique shape there. So there's two ways to go about practicing a sphere. The first one is you can try to draw a spiral, which is an intriguing way to go about it. Um, it gives you a lot of practice trying to draw curves. You want to make sure you do them in both directions. Um, and that'll get you used to making curves. The second way you can try it is to go ahead and just try to draw circles. Um, so now it's important to keep in mind that as you're trying to draw these circles, that you don't focus too much on trying to do it in one motion. So you could try to do it in one motion, but that's like a very specific skill set that not even I have. It's a single mark on an otherwise quite large drawing. Like the perfect circle in this case is just this section right here. But there's a lot more going on in this drawing than just that. So it's completely useless to try to draw perfect circles like this. So a good way to go about it is keeping in mind our practice from earlier, where we have controlled arcs. You want to create a circle using those controlled arcs. And if you make a mistake, just keep going. Don't stop. Don't start over. Um, and you want to try to make a circle using those controlled marks. So if we zoom in here, you can see all of these lines have sharp tips. Every single one of them have a sharp tip, as well as a sharp beginning. And that's because even when we're doing these scratchy drawings, we want to keep our line quality in check. We want to make sure that the quality of the lines are always good. Even if the sketch isn't particularly clean, we want each individual line to be clean. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to read what we're looking at. So if we're looking at this versus this, we can see that one is more significantly more legible. In the same way that if you want to write something in pencil, like a word, you have to follow specific guidelines, or else it becomes illegible. You have to make sure that they're all spaced out properly. Each individual mark is distinct, right? You have to make sure it's the same with this. You have to make sure every individual asset is completely distinct to the amount that you need it to be. The second thing we're doing is the triangles. So the triangles are probably the simplest of the three. Um, you just draw some straight lines, all different angles, different lengths, some perfectly right angles, some very acute. Um, I'm a very cute angle. Thank you for asking. And you want to avoid doing dots. These are bad examples. You want to make sure you're following all of the principles we've been talking about before. I don't think you have to worry about making them too symmetrical or doing them in different directions, but if you're noticing that you're having trouble doing them in a direction, then you should probably practice doing it in that direction. The next one is the square. So the square is basically the same as the triangle. You just want to focus on making sure all of your lines are high quality and drawing these different boxes. And again, you want to draw them on all the different rotations. You don't care if they overlap or anything like that at this point. And if you feel like getting extra advanced, once again, you can make cubes. So there's a square here, and you can see that it's a bit misshapen, but the important thing is the quality of the line. So we can see that we messed up on this line here. So we can even go in with an eraser and just like redo that if you want. As long as you don't destroy your paper. It depends on the quality of your paper if you can do that or not. Um, but we can add extra squares connecting to it. And if you don't know how to make a cube in perspective, you don't have to necessarily do this, although it is fun practice to try to make a cube in perspective like this. But if you're concerned about that or uncomfortable doing that for whatever reason, you could also just keep stacking more squares on each other like this in order to make funky shapes like this. Then you can go ahead and do what we did here, and we can try to mash them all together so we can get a sphere and we can get a triangle that's coming out of it. We can try to get another triangle coming out of it. And then we add a cube coming out of it. This cube is coming out of a sphere. So the sphere is kind of curved like this. So that part of the cube is curved. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and think, where's the light coming from? Just pick a direction. And anything that isn't going that way is going to be dark. And which it also includes the sphere, so everything here is going to be dark as well. And you can get a blur tool if you have it. And you can go ahead and just blur that out. Only the parts that are dark should be blurred. Keep the other stuff clean. You can even go with an eraser and do that. And then you have to imagine the cast shadow. So there is this part of the circle sticking out. So it would cast a shadow in the shape of a triangle down here. And so we have this little special shape. Like this, cast shadow. And again, you want to imagine what kind of shadow would be cast by this object. So we have this little pointy part, which is going to be at the top. Then we have this cube in the middle. And then all the way in the back, furthest away from the shadow, we have the little ball. So we make sure this ball is nice and round. And once again, we can blur that out with our little blender. And then we have our little drawing.